Good morning, all of you. I'm so happy to have you here today, and welcome to Myrtle Beach. You're here virtually with the rest of us, and you're being seen by a room full of people. It includes the Asheboro City Council, 3 of Randolph County's 5 county commissioners, including the chair of the Board of County Commissioners. We've got our North Carolina State Senator Dave Craven with us, and just dozens and dozens of business owners, community leaders, and they're all here to talk about how do we get prepared for what's coming our way. And who better to turn to than some experts that have been through it and have done it successfully. So just for introduction's sake, I'd like to introduce John Lummus. If you could shake your hand, wave to us, with the Upstate South Carolina Alliance, which is essentially a regional EDC. And we've got Mayor Rick Danner from the town of Greer, South Carolina. And we've got Merle Johnson, who's the Economic Development Director for the city of Greenville, South Carolina. And so we're excited to have you here. And I guess I'd like to kick it off with John. Tell us a little bit about what the economic development situation has been, what the impact has been since BMW first came into your scene.
Well, we'll be celebrating, I think it's tomorrow, Mayor Danner, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 30 years ago that BMW made their announcement that they would come to Spartanburg, Greer, South Carolina. The impact of that, not only the 11,000 jobs that they've created, the almost $12 billion in new investment in that plant. I don't even know that we can measure that impact. In 1992, we were a textile-based economy. A number of the textile companies had been closing down or reducing. A lot of that work was going overseas, and we were not in a really good time with our economy. And when BMW made that announcement, it sparked incredible interest, of course, and excitement. They had literally thousands of people applying for every available job that were coming in there. So it was phenomenal. And since they actually began operation in 1994, we've had over 100 companies that have come in to supply the automotive sector. I was looking at a list earlier today. We have 44 automotive companies that have over 200 employees that are located in the upstate. Now, some of those existed before BMW came in. For example, Michelin has had multiple plants. Bosch had plants, but most of these have come in as a result of BMW being located here. Another, I guess, intangible of BMW coming in is when we're out recruiting new industry, when we say that BMW has their largest and most productive plant in our region, that is a pretty good calling card. We can get in pretty much any meeting that we want to in Germany, particularly with automotive companies, when we let them know that BMW is in our region. And I think that has had such a huge impact on our ability to recruit industry, and particularly international industry. If we were able to say that BMW came to our area, started with about 500 employees, now has 11,000 employees, has continued to expand, invest money here, and it's because of our workforce and our ability to make one of the greatest products in the world. Our economic development success over the last 30 years has been pretty phenomenal. I can speak to just over the last 5 years, we've had about $8.4 billion in new investment, creating 9,000 jobs. Just last year in 2021, we had $2.54 billion, and we created 9,000 jobs. I should have said that we created 27,000 jobs over that 5-year period. I got my statistic wrong. So we have continued to be successful over these last 30 years, and a lot of that has been in measure because of BMW's announcement.
Wow. So we may experience the same thing, you know, when they tell everybody we've got Toyota here and we've got Boom Supersonic and these other companies.
Oh, you will. There's no doubt. I mean, I guess, and the biggest challenge you'll have is much like the challenges we have every day is providing the workforce for those jobs. But I know you've all had a manufacturing workforce over the years with textiles and furniture and other types of manufacturing. So yeah, y'all have a good workforce there as well.
Well, we do, and actually workforce development is one of the topics we'll be discussing after we hear from you. We're going to talk about that first thing this morning. Mayor Danner, I got a chance to hear you talk earlier this year in May, and you talked about the impact that BMW has had on the town of Greer, and it was just amazing to see all the things you've done. You've got a beautiful town there. You border BMW on 3 sides, and you collect no tax dollars from them. So tell us a little bit about the impact all of this industry has had on your community.
I'll be glad to, and thank you for asking me to be a part of this panel. It is a story that, just like John said, is almost too hard to believe in some regards, but you know, we've lived it over the last 30 years, and we've learned some good lessons. We've learned some hard lessons. We know some things that we want to continue to do, and we know some things we don't want to continue to do. I think one of the first things that sort of strikes me that you know, that is going to be an issue that it was certainly an issue, as John identified, for us in 1992 when the announcement was made about BMW, is a workforce. And fortunately, in South Carolina, we've got a dedicated school system that is nimble and agile enough with the state's ability to do specific training and to help in that regard with our technical school system. But you know, what we've got to remember is that when they opened in the mid 90s, at that point in time, their hiring goal was about 2,000, maybe 2,500, and there was over 40,000 people that applied for those initial jobs.
Wow.
And part of that comes from the fact that there's fairly significant population differences between our area and yours. In 1992 in Greer, we were, I'm gonna say in 1990, the 1990 census, we were probably around 12,000. By 2000, we were about 17,000. By 2010, 25,000, 28,000 somewhere. And then at this last census, we were 42 plus. So as you mentioned, I think earlier, and may not have said it to this group, it's been an incredible growth rate over the last 25 to 30 years, certainly steady. But I don't know how much of that to attribute to BMW and to the growth in the area in general, because we've seen, and this is kind of interesting, the city of Greer, about 2/3 of it is in Greenville County and about 1/3 of it is in Spartanburg County. Seen exponential growth in both those counties over this same time frame. And so we have a population now in Greenville County alone of 550,000 and probably 380,000 in Spartanburg. So we're a community of at least 2 counties of bearing down on 1 million people. And then if you look at the entire region, and John's going to have to help me with this, we call the 10 counties in the upstate is the upstate. And John, what's a number on the upstate total right now? You got any idea?
Yeah, it's 1,540,000 roughly.
So you can see the concentration of people is in, just primarily in the two counties of Greenville and Spartanburg. And that really plays to Greer's advantage because by design, Greenville County's economic development efforts and Spartanburg County's economic development efforts follow two sort of divergent paths. And I think that has played well for both counties. And I'll invite John to jump in or Merle, either one. The Greenville County commissioners and others that lead their economic development group have identified some target areas that basically are built around technology, medical, aerospace, some higher end, more targeted of manufacturing. Whereas Spartanburg County is really built a base off of their textile industry, and they are a community that has found great success in a manufacturing world that includes everything from heavy machinery to textile products to packaging, just any number of things, and quite honestly has led the upstate in new jobs for the last several years, and probably projects as well too. Again, you may have some insight on that, John, but it's been amazing to watch the growth on the Spartanburg side. Not to say that there's not a lot of growth going on in the Greenville side, but it's been pretty amazing on the Spartanburg side.
Yeah, and no, I totally agree with that. And the growth, for several years in a row, if not almost every year, Spartanburg has led the state of South Carolina in investment and job creation, a number of projects, which has been incredible. Greenville's done fantastic too. But the mayor is exactly correct that that growth has been pretty phenomenal, and the Greer has also grown. I mean, there's a lot of industrial buildings and property there, so they've had a number of good announcements within that city. Probably, maybe, I don't know, I guess I could say more of those maybe in the Spartanburg side, but a few in Greenville too. So they've done well as well within their city limits.
We have a very interesting dynamic, and I would say that we have one of the few in South Carolina, if not the only city in South Carolina, that has 5 industrial parks inside our city limits. And to John's point, that has been huge in terms of our ability to attract tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, engineering companies, logistics and distribution. You add to that there is an inland port, the South Carolina inland port Greer now is growing at full capacity and expanding. They've done 3 expansions in the last probably 5 years, and then the Greenville Spartanburg Jetport is located in Greer as well too, and their air freight facility is just growing like a weed. So we really are in a sweet spot, which has been beneficial for us because, as you mentioned, the airport by state legislation is surrounded by the city, but we have no ad valorem tax base from them. The port is the same thing. The property is owned by the state. There's no tax base there, and we actually surround BMW. And again, there is that land is owned by the Ports Authority, so there's no direct tax base to us from there. All very good corporate partners. They participate with events in the city, and we get along well. But it's a little different model, I think, than you see in some other places. one of the things I guess I would tell the communities is with these bigger entities coming in and locating in the county, unlike some of the growth that we've dealt with, where our departments were actually interacting with the building process and the zoning and the planning and the inspections and everything that comes with that, there was always a fee structure for that as well too. And that has been a big boost to us. We have certainly not a Greenville type budget, but for a town our size, about a $40 million budget a year. And that doesn't include our Commission of Public Works. And I will have to say that we would be nowhere near where we are right now if it weren't for the fact that as a city, we offer power, electricity, water, sewer, and gas. And we require you to annex into the city for any one of those 4 services. And so that has helped fuel our residential growth and our industrial growth, and actually commercial growth as well too, to new heights. We would be nowhere near close to where we are now if we had to deal with special purpose districts providing fragmented services to our residents and or to the industry that's located in this area. And so I think there's going to have to be a strategy around, who's going to provide the services, what those services are going to look like. Because if there's not a way for the cities to actually capture tax base from these, you have to capture residential growth, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to see businesses that are support businesses inside your city limits, and you're going to have to deal with the traffic and have to deal with the issues that come with an employer that's going to hire 2,500 or 3,000 people. And they're going to be using your roads. They're going to be using your police services. They're going to be using all these kinds of things. They're not going to have a tax base to support that. And so I think that's one of the things that I would really run the red flag up about is, how are you going to accommodate the growth that's coming your way in terms of incorporating it into the city? And then number 2, how are you going to pay for it and pay for the services that come along with how you're going to, provide those, all I think critical thought processes for the elected officials at the municipal level. And certainly the government, the county government has to think about that as well too. One of the things to hear a lot is, the county road system is an old farm to market system, and it's not the best in some places. And if you're going to bring 3,000 people in 3 shifts or 2 shifts in and out every day, you're going to have a way to get them in and get them out of there. And so that, I think that's going to be an issue as well too. One more thing.
That's all fantastic advice. I want to back up just a little bit. You said that you developed 5 industrial parks in your community. What size are those parks?
Acreage, I wouldn't know. We've got 2 large parks comprised of 12 to 15 manufacturing entities and distribution entities. Then we've got 2 more that are mid-size and 1 that is a smaller park, probably half a dozen. So, we're talking about a total of possibly 50 entities.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great advice. Merle, you folks in Greenville have just done such a great job. And I mentioned this earlier before we started recording. I think a lot of people point to Greenville as a real success story. What you've done with your downtown and all the things you've done and how you've accommodated and absorbed the growth. But when we were there on our visit in May, we heard about some really smart things that your city did involving residents and talking about what you wanted your community to look like when it was all said and done. And if you could talk a little bit about some of the updating of codes and planning and, you know, all of that, just what kinds of things did you do to kind of make sure you held true to what your community said it wanted to look like?
Sure. Well, again, like Mayor Danner and John, thank you all for allowing me this just a couple minutes to chit chat with you guys. And I'll start with some full disclosure. I moved up here in the middle of the pandemic. So I've been here since July of 2020. Now I've been in the state for, including my time up here, 17 years, but the predominance of it down in the Charleston area for 14 years. And so I'll tell you some of the lessons learned that have been, you know, passed down to me, and we'll go from there. I think the first thing that I would say is you've got, and I'll use Mayor Danner and John Lummus as an example in this regard, that you've got an elected official, and then you've got John Lummus, who spends a lot of time with the private sector. And what I'm getting at is if you can get an elected official or elected officials to work with the business community and the business community to work with the elected officials, magic can happen, and magic in what you see in Greenville. So there's a lot of intentionality between those two entities or groups of people, to include master planning, right? So the city of Greenville's done a tremendous amount of master planning, but because they get so much community buy-in from both the citizens as well as the business community, when you have a master plan that may take 5-10 years to complete, nobody goes off the rails, right? And so they will stick with it, and make sure that they can see it to completion, right? I mean, you would not have the main street that you have here now, as well as Falls Park, which has taken many years to get to where we're at now, without that intentionality between the elected officials and that private business community. And so again, that's a huge kudos to both of those groups of people, especially here in the city of Greenville. With regards to the master planning, as you're going through that planning process and the document gets done, number one, you can't put it on the shelf. And number two, you've got to review it and update it. And so the city's also done quite a bit of work. So we have a downtown master plan, but through that downtown master plan, there are parts of the town, and one of them being South Downtown. We call it South Downtown. It's where United Community Bank is going, but we have a South Downtown master plan now. And it's interesting how they had called out for, that was a great place for a new corporate headquarters, and United Community Banks is actually locating in South Downtown. So an example. And then we have a West End small area plan. Again, West End is in downtown. However, it's got its own look, its own feel. And so they did a small area plan for that as well. And so again, updating those plans are very important. If you have not looked at your land management ordinance or your development code in a while, I would highly recommend you do that. We are going through that process now. And I am not in the planning department, so I don't know exactly when the last time they updated it. But I do know that the update to this plan is going to cost the city just over $1 million, but they are revamping the entire plan. And it is in not only in preparation, but in design for the business community, so that development can grow and operate and work properly within the city limits. And in conjunction with that, they're looking at the way we hold or do like the planning commissions and the design review boards and things like that, so that I think both John and Mayor Danner would probably say that I know in Greer, they do an extremely good job, and John Lummus would probably say we do a wonderful job with the 10 counties up here, but money and or time and speed to market is very important to a private company, because that's dollars in their pocket, or potentially dollars that have to leave their pocket. And so being able to get that LMO done in such a way so that you can streamline the process and things like that, that's very important. And then the other piece that I'll say is I've heard, and hopefully you guys have already met with Mayor Knox White, but he made a comment probably about 12 months ago that I heard him say, and I use it all the time. And so, you know, I'll give credit where credit's due, but I've stolen it from him, is they were very intentional about making sure that Greenville was a livable city. And because it's livable for its residents, now both people and businesses want to move here. And so you have to be intentional about that quality of life. You know, people now have an opportunity to live and work just about anywhere in the world. And so if you're not intentional about that livability, you can get, you know, passed over. So hope that answers your questions. But I think those are some of the things, the key points that I've seen since I've been here the last 24, 25 months.
Wow, I'm really excited to hear the things you've been saying, because to your point, Merle, this afternoon after lunch, we're going to have a session on quality of life, and we're going to talk about what do we want the community to look like 20 years from now? What do we want to see change? What do we not want to see change? And what does failure look like? So we're going to talk about that. And then to Mayor Danner's point earlier, infrastructure. As soon as we're done talking about workforce development this morning, we're going to be talking about infrastructure and talking about some possible industrial sites that maybe make some sense. So I can't thank you enough for all the you know, experiences you've shared with us, but I guess I'll ask you one final question. What's your top tip, piece of advice, recommendation, suggestion? Don't do this, or yeah, you'll regret it if you do that. What advice do you have for us? We're where you were 30 years ago. And so what would you tell your 30-year ago self that we should be doing?
Well, if it's okay, I'm sorry, John.
Good.
I again, being here 25, 26 months, what I would say is what's good for one entity in town, 10 counties is good for all of those entities in 10 counties. And so what I'm getting at is you need to be able to collaborate across jurisdictional lines. And I'll use this just as one example. Mayor Danner has a gentleman by the name of Reno Deaton, who does their development corporation, and he's invited me over there several times. I've met some of his companies and his entrepreneurs, and we've done the same when we've had some events at Floor Field here, because those entrepreneurs, whether they're in Greer or they're in the city of Greenville, they need all the support they can get. And so we collaborate as much as possible. And I think to that point is that's what's so great about having the Upstate Alliance here, is they allow us that opportunity to collaborate with each other. And so that's one thing that I would say that I've seen that they've done a wonderful job up here with.
It's good advice.
Thank you, Merle. I appreciate that. I do think that the collaboration is just key. You know, the borders of a city and a county workforce doesn't look at that. You're going to be bringing in workforce from multiple counties, from multiple municipalities. And I think this collaborative effort working together is important. I would also say that, you know, make sure that your transportation planning is really looked at in regard to, you know, these facilities, and make sure you're looking ahead as to what those transportation needs are going to be around there, and also your infrastructure needs in regard to, you know, water, sewer, you know, broadband, all of these things. That's going to be very important when they look to expand and to grow. So yeah, but y'all are in a great spot, and I'm very, very happy with what's going on up in y'all's community and your surrounding communities.
And I'm going to tag on to John with one of my comments, and then I've got another one to kind of to close with. You know, when BMW first opened, average drive time for their employees was 5 minutes to 2 hours. So, you know, you're going to be drawing from a broad area, particularly given, you know, the demographics and the numbers in terms of the counties there. You might want to expect that you're going to be drawing people from a large area. Now that number is down to closer to 5 minutes to an hour now, but you're still, if you think about it, you're drawing employees from, you know, an hour away. You're still drawing from a large area. So, you know, please consider that in terms of your transportation planning and the other things that go along with that. Mine goes straight to the heart of a municipality, and back to Merle's, you know, comments. We have a rolling 15-year plan that we update every 5 years. And to memorialize that, we put it in a hardback book. That's how important it is to us. And we give it, you know, we give out copies right and left because we are determined that as a community that we want our folks to know where we're headed and how we plan to get there. I would offer to all of the communities that are going to be around where these go, do not let the bright lights blind you. Stick to your guns. What got you to where you are is what's going to get you to tomorrow. And you know, if it means that you have to change your zoning codes, and like Greenville, we are going through a whole new process to update our zoning codes, a unified development ordinance, UDO. Just to address some issues. But 20 years ago, we went through a planning exercise that all our local builders and others said, well, you know, we'll never build another home in Greer if you're going to make us put interior sidewalks in every development, if you're going to make us put signage, berm entrance to every, if you're going to make us do turning lanes for every new development, we'll just go somewhere else. And that's not going to happen if you can provide them with what you need. And I would say for us, our success has been stick to your guns. That'd be my advice.
Well, I can't thank you all enough. You have you've given us some great things to think about, and I'm just pleased to see that a lot of the things you're highlighting are topics we're going to be talking about here at our retreat. And I just want to say thank you. And on behalf of everybody who's here in the room with me watching this today, I want to extend their thanks as well and their appreciation. So thanks so much. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you, Linda.